You've been telling yourself a story your entire life, a story about who you are, what you deserve, and why you do the things you do. Tonight, we're going to tear that story apart. You think you're a good person. You donate to charity when you can afford it. You hold doors open. You say please and thank you. You've never committed a serious crime, never intentionally destroyed someone's life. You're decent, respectable. But here's what you don't want to admit. That goodness, it's a mask. And underneath that mask is something far more powerful than you've ever dared to acknowledge. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was the perfect daughter. Straight A's, never missed curfew, helped with dinner every night. At 35, she still calls her mother every day, still says yes to every family gathering, still smiles when her sister makes cutting remarks about her single status. Sarah thinks she's being good. Sarah thinks she's being loving. But Sarah is dying inside because Sarah has never once asked herself the question that terrifies her most. What if I stopped being good? What if, instead of swallowing her sister's cruelty, she looked her in the eye and said, "That was cruel, and I won't accept it"? What if, instead of sacrificing her Saturday for another obligation, she said, "No, I have other plans"? What if Sarah discovered that the person she's been calling good is actually just afraid? This is where most people stop listening. This is where you want to click away, because what I'm about to say challenges everything you've been taught about yourself. You're not a good person because you choose to be good. You're a good person because you're terrified of what happens if you're not. Think about your childhood for a moment. Really think about it. When did you first learn that love was conditional? When did you first discover that acceptance came with a price tag? Maybe it was when you expressed anger and were told, "Good children don't get angry." Maybe it was when you said no to something and watched disappointment wash over a parent's face. Maybe it was when you tried to set a boundary and were labeled selfish or difficult. Somewhere in your small, developing mind, you made a decision that would shape the next decades of your life. I will be good. I will be what they need me to be. And then I will be loved. But here's the cruel irony of that childhood bargain. The love you received wasn't actually love. It was approval. And approval is just love with conditions attached. You learn to perform goodness, not embody it. You learn to smile when you wanted to scream, to say yes when every cell in your body was screaming no, to apologize for taking up space, for having needs, for being human. And you called this sacrifice virtue. But what if I told you that your so-called goodness has been the source of your greatest pain? What if I told you that every time you felt invisible, unheard, or taken for granted, it wasn't because the world is cruel. It was because you taught people exactly how to treat you. You taught them that your needs don't matter. You taught them that your boundaries are suggestions, not requirements. You taught them that you will absorb their emotions, their stress, their problems, and smile while doing it. And then you wondered why you feel so empty. This is the moment where everything changes. This is where you stop being a victim of your own goodness and start becoming the architect of your own life. Because here's what nobody tells you about authentic power. It doesn't come from being nice. It comes from being real. Real people have shadows. Real people get angry. Real people say no without explaining themselves to death. Real people take up space and don't apologize for existing. Real people are not always good, and that's exactly what makes them powerful. I'm not telling you to become cruel. I'm not telling you to hurt people or abandon your values. I'm telling you to stop abandoning yourself. I'm telling you to reclaim the parts of your personality that you've been suffocating in the name of being good. Your anger, it's not evil, it's information. It's your psyche telling you that a boundary has been crossed. Your selfishness, it's not sin, it's self-preservation. It's your soul demanding the space it needs to breathe. Your darkness, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's the source of your depth, your compassion, your ability to connect with other human beings who are also struggling in the shadows. The people who have changed the world were never good people in the traditional sense. They were whole people, complete people, people who had integrated their light and their shadow, their kindness and their fierce boundaries, their love and their refusal to be diminished. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this question. Who would you be if you weren't trying to be good? Who would you be if you trusted that you could be loved not for your perfection, but for your authenticity? Who would you be if you stopped performing and started living? What would you say if you knew your voice mattered? What would you refuse if you knew your time was precious? What would you pursue if you knew your dreams were valid? The person you would be, that's who you actually are. Underneath all the conditioning, all the people-pleasing, all the exhausting performance of goodness. That person, the real you, is not good or bad. That person is powerful. And power, real power, doesn't hurt people. It protects them. It creates boundaries that keep everyone safe. It says the hard truths that need to be said. It loves fiercely because it's not afraid of being abandoned. But here's the thing about stepping into your power. Not everyone is going to like it. The people who benefited from your endless giving are going to resist your boundaries. The people who felt comfortable with your silence are going to be uncomfortable with your voice. The people who loved your availability are going to struggle with your selectivity. And this is where most people turn back. This is where they decide that keeping the peace is more important than keeping their soul. But you're not most people, are you? You're here in the darkness, listening to uncomfortable truths, because somewhere deep inside, you know that your life is waiting for you on the other side of this transformation. Let me tell you what happens when you stop being good and start being real. You discover that the love you were so afraid of losing, it was never really there in the first place. And the love that replaces it, the love that sees your wholeness and chooses you anyway, that love is worth every difficult conversation, every lost relationship, every moment of standing alone in your truth. You discover that your voice, when you finally use it, is not a weapon, it's a bridge. You discover that your boundaries, when you finally set them, don't push people away. They invite the right people closer. You discover that your power, when you finally claim it, doesn't corrupt you. It liberates you. And you discover something else. You were never a good person who was hiding something bad. You were always a complete person who was pretending to be half. So here's your invitation into the darkness, into the wholeness, into the power that has always belonged to you. Stop being good. Start being real. Stop performing love. Start demanding it. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Start taking up the space you were born to fill. Your goodness was never your power. Your wholeness is. The question isn't whether you're a good person. The question is, are you a real one? If this reached something deep inside you, if it stirred something you thought you'd buried forever, I want to hear about it. Share your story in the comments. Tell me about the moment you stopped being good and started being real. And if you're ready to explore more of these uncomfortable truths, to dive deeper into the shadows where your real power lives, subscribe. Join us here in the darkness, where we remember who we really are. Until next time, stop being perfect. Start being powerful.